The storm had taken everything. Her husband, her home, her hope. Sarah Mitchell stood in the muddy ruins of what was once a thriving ranch outside Cheyenne, Wyoming, clutching the only thing she had left, her wedding ring. The gold band felt heavy in her trembling fingers as she stared at the mercantile across the flooded street. 3 days without food. Her stomach had stopped growling hours ago, replaced by a hollow ache that made her vision swim. The bell above the door chimed as she entered. Mr. Hodges looked up from his ledger, his expression hardening when he saw her. "Mrs. Mitchell, I heard about Samuel. Terrible shame, but I can't extend more credit." "I'm not asking for credit." Sarah's voice cracked as she placed the ring on the counter. The afternoon sun caught the gold, making it shine like a small piece of captured light. "How much food will this buy?" Before you continue with Sarah's journey, I'd love to ask you to take a moment to subscribe to our channel. He wore a dusty black hat and a leather vest that revealed muscular arms crossed over his chest. "The lady asked you a question, Hodges. Answer it, or I'll take my business elsewhere, permanently." The mercantile owner's face paled. Everyone in Cheyenne knew Cole Maddox. His ranch, the Broken Arrow, was the largest in the territory, and his word carried more weight than the sheriff's. "Mr. Maddox, I didn't mean—" "How much?" Cole's gaze never left Hodges. $20 in goods, maybe. That ring's worth twice that, and you know it." Cole moved closer, and Sarah caught the scent of leather and sage. He plucked the ring from Hodges's palm and pressed it back into Sarah's hand, closing her fingers around it. His hand was warm, calloused, and surprisingly gentle. "Keep your ring, ma'am. Some things aren't meant to be traded." Sarah's throat tightened. "I need to eat." "I know." Those storm-gray eyes met hers, and she saw something there she hadn't expected, understanding without pity. "Hodges, put together supplies for Mrs. Mitchell. Flour, beans, salt pork, coffee, sugar. Charge it to my account." "That's not necessary," Sarah began, but Cole raised one hand. "It is, because you're going to work for it." He tilted his head toward the door. "I need a cook. My last one quit after my foreman insulted her biscuits. The job comes with a cabin, wages, and 3 meals a day. You interested?" Pride and desperation warred in Sarah's chest. She'd never worked for wages in her life. Samuel had provided for them. And before that, her father. But Samuel was gone, swept away by the flash flood that had destroyed their homestead. And pride wouldn't fill her empty stomach. "I can cook," she said quietly. "Then we have an arrangement." Cole turned to Hodges. "Add soap, fabric for 2 dresses, and boots to that order. Size—" he glanced at Sarah's worn shoes. 6, 7, Sarah whispered, humiliation burning her cheeks. 7, Cole confirmed. "Have everything ready by the time we finish at the land office. I'm driving Mrs. Mitchell out to the Broken Arrow today." An hour later, Sarah sat beside Cole in his wagon, the supplies secured in the back. The storm-ravaged landscape rolled past. Broken fences, uprooted trees, the swollen creek still running brown with runoff. Cole drove in silence, his large hands steady on the reins, his profile sharp against the endless sky. "Why?" Sarah finally asked. "You don't know me." "I know enough," his jaw tightened. "I know what it's like to have everything ripped away. And I know that nobody should have to trade their last piece of memory for a meal." "Your wife?" The question escaped before Sarah could stop it. "And my daughter." The words were stones dropping into deep water. "Cholera, 5 years ago." He was quiet for a moment, then added, "The Broken Arrow's been a cold place since. Maybe that'll change now." The ranch appeared as they crested a hill, a sprawling valley with a two-story house, barn, bunkhouse, and corrals. Cattle dotted the grassland like dark stars. It was beautiful and prosperous, everything Sarah's homestead had never been, and utterly intimidating. Cole helped her down from the wagon, his hands spanning her waist. For a moment, they stood close enough that she could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, the scar cutting through his left eyebrow. "The cabin's behind the main house. Small, but it's yours. Private. Mr. Maddox, Cole." He released her slowly. "If we're going to work together, might as well use names. Cole." His name felt strange on her tongue. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. I have 8 ranch hands who eat like starving wolves, and they'll judge you on your first meal." The corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, but close. "But something tells me you can handle it." The cabin was indeed small. One room with a bed, stove, table, and chair. But it was clean, dry, and hers. Sarah spent the afternoon unpacking the supplies and exploring the kitchen in the main house. It was enormous compared to her homestead's cramped space, with a cast-iron range, a pump for water, and shelves stocked with spices she'd only dreamed of. That evening, she prepared her first meal: venison stew, sourdough bread, and apple cobbler made from preserved fruit she found in the cellar. Her hands shook as she carried the dishes to the dining room, where Cole and his men waited. 8 pairs of eyes watched her, 8 weather-beaten faces that had seen every hardship the frontier could offer. The silence stretched unbearably as they began to eat. Then Tom Harris, the gray-bearded foreman, took a second bite of bread and nodded. "If this is what losing your homestead buys us, I almost feel guilty for enjoying it." "Tom," Cole's voice carried a warning. "I meant it as a compliment, boss." Tom's eyes twinkled. "Best bread we've had in a year." The tension broke. The men ate with gusto, and Sarah felt her shoulders relax for the first time in weeks. She retreated to the kitchen, beginning the cleanup, when Cole appeared in the doorway. "They're right. It's good." He set his empty plate on the counter. "You'll do fine here, Sarah." The use of her first name sent a strange flutter through her chest. "I'll earn my keep." "Never doubted it." He hesitated, then added, "If you need anything, anything at all, my room's upstairs, second door on the left. Don't hesitate." After he left, Sarah stood alone in the kitchen, her wedding ring still on her finger, and wondered what kind of man rescued a widow without expecting anything in return. She would learn the answer in the weeks to come. The days fell into a rhythm. Sarah rose before dawn to prepare breakfast, spent the mornings cleaning and preparing lunch, and used the afternoons to bake bread and plan dinner. The work was exhausting, but satisfying. The ranch hands treated her with respect, and Cole was a puzzle she couldn't solve. He was always polite, always appropriate, but she caught him watching her sometimes, not with hunger, but with something deeper. Curiosity, perhaps, or recognition, as if he saw in her the same ghosts that haunted him. 2 weeks into her employment, a spring storm rolled across the plains. Sarah was in the barn, gathering eggs from the henhouse built into the back corner, when the first crack of thunder shook the rafters. Rain hammered the roof like gunfire. "Sarah!" Cole's voice carried over the storm. He appeared in the barn entrance, soaked to the skin, his shirt clinging to the powerful muscles of his chest and shoulders. "Storm's going to be bad. You should stay in the house tonight. That cabin of yours isn't built for." A deafening crack split the air. Lightning had struck one of the cottonwoods near the creek, and the tree was falling, directly toward the barn. Cole moved faster than Sarah thought possible. He grabbed her, spinning them both away from the wall, just as the tree crashed through the barn's side. Wood exploded inward. Sarah felt herself falling. Cole's body wrapped around hers, protecting her from the debris. They hit the ground hard. The world became a chaos of splintered wood, rain, and the terrified screaming of horses. Then silence, broken only by the storm and Sarah's ragged breathing. "Are you hurt?" Cole's voice was rough against her ear. He was covering her completely, his weight pressing her into the hay-strewn floor. She could feel every inch of him, the solid muscle, the heat radiating through his wet clothes, the rapid beat of his heart against her back. "I don't think so." Sarah tried to move, but his arms tightened. "Don't. There's debris everywhere. Let me check first." Cole shifted carefully, examining the destruction around them. A massive branch had missed Sarah's head by inches. If Cole hadn't moved her— "You saved my life," she whispered. "Couldn't let anything happen to my cook." But his voice shook, betraying the fear he was trying to hide. "Can you move your legs?" Sarah tested each limb. Everything worked. "Yes." "Good, we need to get out of here, before more of that tree comes down." Cole rose to his knees, then offered his hand. Sarah took it, and he pulled her up, but she stumbled, her ankle twisting on the uneven ground. She fell against him, and suddenly his arms were around her, steadying her, holding her close. Sarah's hands pressed against his chest, feeling the thundering of his eyes, usually so carefully neutral, burned with something raw and undeniable. "Sarah," he said, and her name was a prayer, a question, a confession. She should pull away. It was too soon, too fast. Samuel had been dead less than 2 months. But Cole's hands on her back were the first gentle touch she'd felt since the storm that had destroyed everything. And she was so tired of being strong, of being alone. "I'm not ready," Sarah breathed, even as her fingers curled into his shirt. But in this position, she looked up at him, saw the understanding in his eyes. "With you, it doesn't feel wrong." "We don't have to," Cole began, but Sarah shook her head. "I know, that's why it's okay." She rested her forehead against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "You're not pushing, you're just here." Cole's arms tightened, one hand coming up to cradle the back of her head. They stood like that as the storm raged around them, 2 broken people finding unexpected shelter in each other. "Come on," Cole finally said, his voice rough. "Let's get you to the house before you catch your death." He scooped her up before she could protest, carrying her through the rain. Sarah wrapped her arms around his neck, no longer caring about propriety or what the ranch hands would think. Cole's strength was absolute. He carried her as if she weighed nothing, navigating the muddy ground without stumbling. Inside the house, he set her down in the kitchen, then disappeared and returned with blankets and towels. "Change out of those wet clothes. I'll make coffee." Sarah retreated to the small washroom off the kitchen, peeling off her soaked dress. Her hands trembled, not from cold, but from the memory of Cole's arms around her, the way he'd looked at her in the barn. She'd felt something shift between them, some invisible line crossed. When she emerged wrapped in a blanket, Cole had coffee waiting and a fire roaring in the hearth. He'd changed too, wearing dry denim pants and a loose cotton shirt. His dark hair was still damp, curling slightly at his temples. "I'll tell the men you're taking tomorrow off. I can work. You can rest." His gray eyes met hers with quiet firmness. "That's not a request, Sarah. You nearly died tonight. So did you." Sarah reached out, touching the cut on his forearm where flying wood had grazed him. Blood seeped through his shirt sleeve. "You're hurt." "It's nothing. Let me clean it." Sarah stood, testing her ankle. It twinged but held. She found the medical supplies and returned, settling beside Cole on the floor. "Your turn to sit still." She rolled up his sleeve, revealing a 6-inch gash. It wasn't deep, but it needed attention. As Sarah cleaned the wound, she became acutely aware of Cole's breathing, the way his muscles tensed under her touch, the scent of rain and man that clung to him. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything. The job, the supplies, and tonight. You keep saving me." "You saved yourself," Cole countered. "You walked into that mercantile ready to trade everything for survival. That takes more courage than anything I've done." It wasn't courage. It was desperation. Sometimes they're the same thing. Cole caught her hand as she finished bandaging his arm. His thumb traced circles on her palm. "Sarah, I need to tell you something. When I offered you this job, I told myself it was just practical. I needed a cook, you needed work. But that was a lie." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. "What do you mean?" "I mean that when I saw you in that mercantile, ready to sell your wedding ring, I saw someone worth saving. Not because you were helpless, but because you were fighting. Still fighting, even when you had nothing left." His grip tightened. "I know what that's like, and I know how lonely it is. I thought maybe we could be lonely together. Maybe that would make it less." Tears burned Sarah's eyes. "I'm still wearing his ring. I know. I dream about the water taking him. I hear him calling my name, but I can't reach him." "I know." Cole's other hand came up to cup her face, his thumb catching a tear. "And when you're ready, if you're ever ready to take that ring off, I'll be here. But if you're not, I'll still be here. Because you're not alone anymore, Sarah. Neither of us are." The words broke something open in Sarah's chest. She leaned forward, closing the distance between them, and pressed her forehead to Cole's. They breathed together, sharing warmth and space and the fragile beginning of something neither had expected to find. "I don't know how to do this," Sarah whispered. "How to move forward." "Neither do I." Cole's hand slid to the back of her neck, his fingers tangling in her hair. "But we don't have to figure it out tonight. Tonight, we're just two people who survived." Cole held her as the fire crackled and the rain drummed against the windows. And for the first time since Samuel's death, Sarah felt something other than grief. She felt hope. The next morning brought disaster of a different kind. Sarah was in the kitchen preparing breakfast, her ankle wrapped and elevated on a stool, when Tom Harris burst through the door. "Boss, riders coming in from the east. Looks like Garrett's men." Cole's expression darkened. He set down his coffee with careful control. "How many?" "6, maybe 8. Tom's weathered face was grim. "They're armed." Sarah had heard about James Garrett, the land baron who'd been trying to buy up ranches throughout the territory. He used intimidation, arson, and worse to force owners to sell. Cole had refused his offers multiple times. "Get the men armed and ready," Cole ordered. "But nobody shoots unless I give the word." He turned to Sarah. "Stay in the house. Lock the doors. Please." The single word held volumes. "Just this once, let me protect you without an argument." Sarah nodded reluctantly. Cole touched her shoulder briefly, then strode out. Through the window, Sarah watched him meet the approaching riders in the yard. Garrett himself led them, a bull of a man with a thick beard and cold eyes. She couldn't hear the conversation, but she saw Cole's posture stiffen, saw Garrett gesture aggressively toward the house. Then Garrett said something that made Cole's hands curl into fists. The confrontation lasted 5 minutes. When Garrett and his men finally rode off, Cole stood in the yard, watching them go. Even from a distance, Sarah could see the tension in his shoulders. He didn't come back inside. That evening, Sarah found him in the barn, brushing down his horse with mechanical precision. The sun was setting, painting the sky crimson and gold. "What did he want?" Sarah asked quietly. Cole didn't turn. He made an offer. "Triple what this land is worth." Said I had 1 week to decide before he takes steps to encourage me. "And you said no." "Of course I said no. The broken arrow is," Cole's voice caught, "it's all I have left of them. My wife loved this place. My daughter took her first steps in that yard. I'll die before I let Garrett take it." Sarah moved closer, placing a hand on Cole's arm. "You won't die. We'll find another way." "We?" Cole finally looked at her, something vulnerable in his expression. "This isn't your fight, Sarah." "Yes, it is." The certainty surprised her. "You gave me a home when I had nothing. You've treated me with respect and kindness. If someone threatens you, then it's my fight too." Cole set down the brush and pulled Sarah into his arms. She went willingly, wrapping herself around him, offering what comfort she could. They stood like that until the light faded. 2 people choosing not to be alone. The week passed in mounting tension. Cole doubled the watch, and the ranch hands carried rifles everywhere. Sarah learned to shoot, spending her afternoons practicing with empty cans, while Cole corrected her stance and praised her improving aim. "You're a natural," he said on the 5th day, standing behind her with his hands on her shoulders. "Steady hands, good eye." "Good teacher," Sarah countered, turning in the circle of his arms. They'd been doing this more often, finding excuses to touch, to be close. The attraction between them had grown from a spark to a steady flame, but neither had pushed for more. Sarah still wore her wedding ring, but she'd started thinking about what taking it off might mean. On the 7th day, smoke appeared on the eastern horizon. Cole saw it from the porch and went still as stone. "That's the Morrison Ranch," he said flatly. "Garrett's making good on his threat." Within an hour, refugees began arriving, the Morrison family and their hands, blackened with soot, carrying what they could salvage. Mrs. Morrison was weeping. Her husband's arm hung at an awkward angle, clearly broken. Sarah and Cole opened the house to them, providing food, water, and medical care. As Sarah bandaged Mr. Morrison's arm, he told them what had happened. "Garrett's men came at dawn. Gave us 10 minutes to get out before they started the fires." His voice shook with rage and pain. "We lost everything. The house, the barn, 2 seasons of hay. All our cattle scattered." "I'm sorry," Cole said, and Sarah heard the guilt in his voice. "This is because I refused to sell. He's making an example." "No," Morrison gripped Cole's shoulder with his good hand. "This is because Garrett's a devil. Don't you dare blame yourself. We'll rebuild, and we'll stand with you when he comes, because he will come." Morrison was right. The attack came 2 nights later. Sarah woke to the sound of breaking glass and gunfire. She scrambled out of bed, her heart pounding, and rushed to the window. Men were in the yard, Garrett's men, torches in hand. The barn was already burning. She grabbed her rifle and ran for the main house. Cole met her halfway, bare-chested and armed, his face a mask of cold fury. "I told you to stay in the cabin, and I'm telling you that I can shoot." Sarah chambered around. "Where do you need me?" For a heartbeat, Cole stared at her. Then he nodded. Upstairs window. Cover below. Cole and his men drove Garrett's raiders back with disciplined fire. The barn was lost, but the house held. As dawn broke, the shooting stopped. Garrett's men retreated, leaving 5 of their number wounded or dead. Cole's side had suffered too. 2 hands with bullets in them, Tom with a nasty burn from a fallen torch. Sarah found Cole in the yard, staring at the smoldering ruins of the barn. His chest was streaked with soot and sweat. A graze across his ribs where a bullet had come too close. "Let me see," Sarah demanded, pulling him toward the pump. She washed the wound. It was shallow, bleeding sluggishly, and pressed a clean cloth against it. "You need stitches." Later. Cole caught her wrist. "Sarah, you could have been killed." "So could you." Sarah looked up at him, at the man who'd become the center of her world in just a few weeks. "I told you, this is my fight too." "Why?" Cole's voice was raw. "Why risk your life for this place? For me?" The answer came easily, truthfully. "Because I see a man worth saving. Because you gave me hope when I had none. Because," Sarah's voice broke, "because I don't want to lose anyone else I—" She couldn't finish, couldn't say the word that had been growing in her heart. But Cole heard it anyway. He kissed her, hard and desperate, one hand tangling in her hair, the other pulling her close. Sarah dropped the cloth and kissed him back, pouring weeks of longing and fear and need into the contact. Cole tasted like smoke and salt and promise. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "I swore I'd never feel this again, never let anyone close enough to lose. And I swore I'd never survive losing someone else." Sarah touched his face, tracing the line of his jaw. "But we're both still here, still fighting. Maybe that means something." "It means everything." Cole's arms tightened. "Sarah, I don't have pretty words or poetry. All I have is this. You're not property. You're a person. A brave, beautiful, impossible woman who makes me want to be better, who makes me want to build a future instead of just protecting the past." Sarah felt something loosen in her chest, the last knot of grief that had been holding her back. She looked down at her hand, at the gold band that had represented everything she'd lost. Then, slowly, she slid it off. "I'll always love Samuel," she said quietly. "But I can't live in his memory anymore. I have to live for myself. And maybe—" She met Cole's eyes. "Maybe for you, if you'll have me." Cole took the ring gently and closed her fingers around it. "Keep it, not as a chain, but as a reminder. You survived the worst thing that could happen, and you're still standing. That takes strength I'll never stop admiring." He lifted her hand to his lips. "And yes, Sarah Mitchell, I'll have you. Today, tomorrow, and every day after, if you'll let me." "Together," Sarah whispered, the word feeling like a vow. "Together," Cole agreed. They sealed the promise with another kiss, standing in the ashes of the barn as the sun rose over the broken arrow. Around them, the ranch hands began the work of cleanup and repair. But Sarah and Cole stood still for a moment longer, holding on to each other, holding on to hope. The final confrontation came 3 days later. Garrett himself rode up to the house, alone this time, carrying a white flag. Cole met him in the yard, rifle across his chest, Sarah standing beside him. "You've got nerve," Cole said coldly, "coming here after what you did." "I'm not here to fight." Garrett's face was haggard. I'm here to tell you I'm leaving the territory. The territorial governor got wind of my methods. There's a warrant out for my arrest. I'm heading to Mexico." Cole's eyes narrowed. "And you're telling me this why?" "Professional courtesy." Garrett smiled bitterly. "You beat me, Maddox. You and your men held against odds that should have crushed you. That takes something I don't have." His gaze shifted to Sarah. "Or someone. Congratulations on finding what matters more than land." He rode off without waiting for a response. Cole watched him go, then turned to Sarah. "It's over." "It's over," Sarah agreed. But she knew he wasn't just talking about Garrett. That evening, Cole found Sarah in her cabin, packing her belongings. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her with those storm-gray eyes. "Going somewhere?" "The main house." Sarah folded a dress carefully. "If the offer still stands, I thought maybe I could move into the guest room. Be closer, in case." "No." Cole straightened, crossing to her in 3 long strides. "Not the guest room." Sarah's heart skipped. "Cole, marry me." The words were blunt, honest, completely Cole. "I'm not good with romance or fancy proposals. But I know this. I don't want you in the guest room, or the cabin, or anywhere except beside me. I want to wake up next to you. I want to build a life together, have children if you're willing, grow old watching sunsets from that porch. I want it all, Sarah. With you." Sarah's eyes burned with tears. "It's only been a month." "I know. And if you need more time, I'll wait. I'll wait as long as you need." Cole cupped her face in his hands. "But life's short and brutal, and I've learned not to waste time when something real comes along. You're real, Sarah. You're brave and strong, and you make me feel alive again. So yes, I'm asking, will you marry me?" Sarah thought about the woman she'd been a month ago. Broken, desperate, ready to trade her last precious thing for survival. Then she thought about who she was now. A woman who'd learned to shoot, to fight, to hope. A woman who'd found strength she never knew she possessed. And she thought about Cole, the man who'd seen her at her lowest and offered not pity, but partnership, who'd made her feel valued and protected without making her feel weak, who'd given her space to grieve while showing her it was possible to love again. "Yes," Sarah said, and watched Cole's face transform with joy. "Yes, I'll marry you, but on one condition." "Anything." "We rebuild the barn together. I want to help, not just cook and clean, but build something real with my own hands. With you." Cole's smile was the most beautiful thing Sarah had ever seen. "Together," he said, and kissed her. They married a week later in a simple ceremony at the ranch, with the Morrison family and all the hands as witnesses. Sarah wore a new dress, pale blue, the color of sky after a storm, and carried wildflowers Cole had picked that morning. Cole wore his best suit and couldn't stop smiling. The circuit preacher pronounced them husband and wife, and when Cole kissed Sarah, the hands cheered and fired their guns into the air. It was loud and joyful and perfect. That night, in the bedroom that was now theirs, Cole was gentle. He undressed Sarah slowly, reverently, pausing to kiss each new inch of skin revealed. When she trembled, he murmured reassurances against her throat, her collarbone, her heart. "I'll die before I hurt you," Cole promised, and Sarah believed him. Their coming together was tender and passionate, Cole moving with careful restraint, until Sarah whispered, "I'm ready, I'm yours." Then there was only sensation, skin and breath, and the joining of two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their separate tragedies. Cole murmured her name like a prayer, and Sarah held him close, marveling at how right it felt, how completely he filled the empty spaces in her heart. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Cole tracing lazy patterns on Sarah's back. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That I'm happy." Sarah lifted her head, meeting his eyes. "For the first time since the flood, I'm actually happy. Is that wrong?" "No." Cole kissed her forehead. "It's not wrong. It's life, Sarah, and we're allowed to live it." "Together," Sarah said, testing the word again. "Together," Cole agreed. "Always." 5 years later, Sarah stood on the porch of the Broken Arrow, watching the sunset paint the valley gold and crimson. Behind her, the house rang with the sound of children laughing. 2 daughters and a son, aged 4, 2, and 6 months. Inside, Cole was attempting to wrangle them into bedtime, a task he approached with the same serious determination he applied to everything. The barn, the one they'd rebuilt together, stood strong and proud, its red paint gleaming. The ranch had prospered, growing from 8 hands to 15. The Morrison family had rebuilt their ranch with Cole's help, and together they'd formed a cooperative that protected against predators like Garrett. But it was the small things Sarah treasured most. The way Cole still brought her wildflowers, the gentle weight of his hand on her shoulder, the life they'd built from ashes and hope. The door opened behind her. "They're finally asleep," Cole announced, wrapping his arms around Sarah from behind, or pretending to be, "which I'll accept." Sarah leaned back against him, feeling his strength, his warmth, his absolute presence. On her right hand, she wore Cole's grandmother's ring, gold set with a small diamond. On her left, on a chain around her neck, she wore Samuel's wedding band. Both rings, both loves, both parts of her story. "What are you thinking?" Cole asked, echoing the question he'd asked 100 times before. "That I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Sarah turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd saved her by believing she could save herself. "With you." Cole smiled and kissed her, long and slow, as the sun sank below the horizon. And Sarah Mitchell Maddox, who'd once been ready to trade her last precious thing for survival, knew she'd found something more valuable than gold. She'd found home. Together. The winter of 1873 brought challenges Sarah hadn't anticipated, not from nature or enemies, but from within the walls of the Broken Arrow itself. Elizabeth, Cole's sister, arrived in December with 2 trunks and a letter of introduction that Cole read with a tightening jaw. "She's leaving her husband," he said quietly, passing Sarah the letter. "Says he's been unfaithful. Wants to stay here while she sorts things out." Sarah scanned the elegant script, noting the carefully worded phrases that hinted at deeper wounds. "Of course she can stay. How long has it been since you've seen her?" 6 years. She didn't come to Amanda's funeral. Cole's voice was flat, but Sarah heard the old hurt beneath. Said she couldn't handle it. Elizabeth Maddox Thornton swept into the ranch 3 days later like a force of nature. She was beautiful, dark hair like Cole's, but with violet eyes and porcelain skin that spoke of a life lived indoors. Her dress was Eastern fashion, expensive and impractical, and she surveyed the ranch house with barely concealed disdain. "So this is what you've chosen," Elizabeth said, kissing Cole's cheek with cool precision. "Rustic. Very authentic." "This is my home," Cole replied. "Elizabeth, this is my wife, Sarah." Elizabeth's gaze swept over Sarah with the efficiency of a general assessing troops. Sarah felt suddenly conscious of her simple cotton dress, her work-roughened hands, the flour still dusting her apron from that morning's baking. How charming, Elizabeth said, her smile not reaching her eyes. A ranch wife. Cole, you always did have a fondness for projects. The words stung, but Sarah kept her expression neutral. Welcome to the Broken Arrow, Elizabeth. I've prepared the guest room for you. How thoughtful. Elizabeth handed her coat to Cole as if he were a servant. I assume you have help? I'll need my trunks unpacked, and I take my tea at 4 o'clock. Earl Grey with lemon. Cole's expression darkened. Sarah isn't your maid, Elizabeth. We all work here. You want tea at 4? You'll make it yourself. For a moment, Elizabeth looked genuinely shocked. Then her mask slipped back into place. Of course. How progressive of you. That first evening set the tone for the weeks that followed. Elizabeth occupied the guest room like a queen in exile, emerging only for meals and to make cutting observations about ranch life. She criticized the food, the furniture, the lack of proper society, but most of all, she questioned Sarah's place in Cole's life. I can't imagine what you two talk about, Elizabeth said one afternoon, sipping tea in the parlor, while Sarah mended Cole's work shirt. You come from such different worlds. Cole was raised with culture, education. He's read Dante, for heaven's sake. I've read Dante, Sarah said quietly, not looking up from her stitching. In Italian and English both. My father was a professor before we moved west. Elizabeth blinked, thrown off her rhythm. Oh, how unexpected. Perhaps you shouldn't make assumptions about people based on their circumstances, Sarah suggested, keeping her tone mild. It's a dangerous habit. But tension in the house grew daily. Cole noticed, of course. He found Sarah in the kitchen one evening, kneading bread with more force than necessary. She's getting to you, he observed, leaning against the counter. She's your sister. Sarah punched the dough. And she's hurting. I can handle her condescension. You shouldn't have to. Cole moved behind her, his hands covering hers, stilling her violent kneading. Sarah, look at me. She turned, and Cole cupped her face in his flour-dusted hands. Elizabeth is bitter because her life didn't turn out how she planned. But that's not your fault, and it's not your problem. You belong here. You're my wife, my partner, and the strongest woman I know. Don't let her poison make you doubt that. Sarah leaned into his touch. I know, it's just, she makes me feel like I'm not enough, not refined enough, not educated enough, not... Stop. Cole kissed her, soft and sweet. You're everything. And if Elizabeth can't see that, it's her failing, not yours. But Elizabeth's presence continued to disturb the peace of the ranch. She began inserting herself into conversations with Cole, reminding him of their shared childhood, their parents' expectations, the life he'd left behind in Philadelphia. And slowly, Sarah noticed Cole becoming more withdrawn, more haunted. One night, Sarah woke to find his side of the bed empty. She found him on the porch, staring at the stars, a bottle of whiskey beside him. Cole, go back to bed, Sarah. Not without you. She sat beside him, took the bottle, and set it aside. What did she say? Nothing I didn't already know. Cole's voice was rough. That I failed Amanda. That if I'd stayed east, gotten proper medical care, she might have survived the cholera. That this place, he gestured at the ranch, killed my family. Sarah's heart clenched. You know that's not true. Do I? Cole turned to her, and in the moonlight, his face was ravaged. I brought them here, Sarah, to this harsh land with limited doctors and diseases that run through communities like wildfire. I chose this life, and they paid the price. Amanda loved this place, Sarah said firmly. You've told me that yourself. She chose it too, Cole. And cholera doesn't care whether you're in Philadelphia or Wyoming. It takes who it takes. Elizabeth says I'm repeating the pattern, that I've brought another wife to this dangerous place, and history will repeat itself. Cole's hands fisted on his knees. What if she's right? What if I lose you too? Sarah understood then. Elizabeth wasn't just bitter, she was cruel. She was using Cole's deepest fear as a weapon, trying to drive a wedge between him and his happiness. Look at me, Sarah commanded, using the same tone Cole had used on her. Cole Maddox, look at me. He did, reluctantly. I am not Amanda, Sarah said clearly. I love that you loved her, that you honor her memory, but I am my own person, and I make my own choices. I chose you. I chose this life, and I will not be frightened away by your sister's poison or your fears. Sarah, I'm not finished. Sarah moved to straddle his lap, forcing him to meet her eyes. Life is dangerous everywhere. I could die tomorrow from a dozen different things, and so could you. But we can't live in fear of what might happen. We can only live here, now, together. That's what we promised, remember? Together, Cole whispered. Together, Sarah confirmed. Now come back to bed, and tomorrow you're going to tell your sister that she can keep her bitterness to herself or she can leave, because I won't have her destroying what we've built. Cole pulled Sarah close, burying his face in her hair. I don't deserve you. Probably not, Sarah agreed, smiling against his neck. But you're stuck with me anyway. The next morning, Cole confronted Elizabeth in the parlor. Sarah listened from the kitchen, not hiding her presence, but not intruding either. You need to stop, Cole said, his voice carrying that quiet authority Sarah had learned meant he was truly angry. I know you're hurt. I know your marriage failed, and you needed a place to heal. But you don't get to take that out on Sarah, and you don't get to resurrect my ghosts to make yourself feel better. I'm only trying to protect you. No, the word cracked like a whip. You're trying to make me as miserable as you are, and I won't allow it. Sarah is my wife. She's earned her place here 100 times over, and she has my heart in ways you can't understand. So you have a choice. Elizabeth, you can stay here and be part of this family, which means respecting Sarah and this life I've chosen. Or you can leave. Silence. Then Elizabeth's voice, smaller than Sarah had ever heard it. I don't know how to be happy for you when I'm so unhappy myself. Then learn, Cole said, not unkindly. Or go somewhere you can figure it out. But you don't get to poison my home. Elizabeth left the next morning. As her wagon pulled away, she looked back once. Sarah, standing beside Cole on the porch, thought she saw regret in the other woman's eyes. But then Elizabeth turned forward, and the moment passed. Are you all right? Sarah asked. Cole pulled her close. I am now. She was right about one thing, though. What's that? I do have a fondness for projects. He grinned down at her. Specifically, the project of loving you for the rest of my life. Sarah laughed and kissed him, and the shadow Elizabeth had cast over the broken arrow finally lifted. Spring brought new life to the ranch, and news that made Sarah's heart skip. She'd suspected for weeks, but Doc Patterson's confirmation made it real. About 3 months along, the doctor said, packing his instruments. Should arrive in late October, early November. You're healthy and strong, Mrs. Maddox. I don't foresee any complications. Sarah pressed a hand to her still flat stomach, wonder and terror mixing in equal measure. A baby. Cole's baby. After everything they'd survived, they were creating new life. She waited until dinner to tell him, after the hands had eaten and retreated to the bunkhouse. Cole was reviewing the books at his desk when Sarah entered the study, closing the door behind her. "Everything all right?" Cole asked, immediately alert to her nervousness. "It depends on your perspective." Sarah moved to stand beside his chair. "Cole, I'm pregnant." The pen fell from Cole's hand. He stared at her, his face cycling through shock, fear, and finally brilliant joy. "You're certain?" "Doc Patterson confirmed it this afternoon. 3 months, due in October." Cole stood slowly, as if afraid sudden movement might shatter the moment. His hand came up to rest on Sarah's stomach, gentle and reverent. "A baby. Our baby. Are you happy?" Sarah asked, even though she could see the answer in his eyes. "Happy doesn't begin to cover it." Cole pulled her close, careful now, as if she'd become fragile. "Terrified, yes, but happy beyond measure. Sarah, you've given me everything." "We made this together," Sarah reminded him. She felt the dampness of tears on his cheek and held him tighter. "Cole, I know you're scared. I know what happened with Amanda." "Don't." Cole pulled back, framing her face with both hands. "I won't let fear steal this joy. You're right. We face life together, whatever comes, and this baby will be loved and wanted and protected with everything I have." The pregnancy progressed smoothly through summer. Sarah worked until she couldn't hide her growing belly, then reluctantly accepted help from Julia Morrison, who'd given birth to 4 children and knew every trick for easing discomfort. Cole was attentive to the point of being suffocating, trying to prevent Sarah from doing any heavy lifting or riding or basically anything more strenuous than sitting. "I'm pregnant, not made of glass," Sarah protested one afternoon when Cole physically lifted her away from a basket of laundry. "I can carry clothes." "Let me." Cole's jaw was set in that stubborn line Sarah had learned to recognize. "Please, just this once, let me take care of you." Sarah softened, seeing the fear beneath his overprotectiveness. "Cole, I'm all right. The baby's all right. Doc Patterson said everything's perfect. I know, Cole set down the basket and pulled Sarah close, mindful of her protruding belly. "I can't lose you. I won't survive it." "You won't have to," Sarah kissed him softly. "I'm strong, remember? I'm going to be fine, and so is this baby. You have to trust that." Cole nodded, but Sarah saw him make the sign of the cross, something she'd never seen him do before. That night, she found him in what had been his daughter's room, now prepared for their baby. He sat in the rocking chair, his head in his hands. "Cole?" "She was so small," he said quietly. "Emma, she fit in my hands when she was born. Amanda was in labor for 12 hours, and when Emma finally came, she wasn't breathing. Doc had to work on her for 5 minutes before she cried. Longest 5 minutes of my life." Sarah lowered herself carefully into a chair beside him. "You never told me that. It's hard to talk about. Amanda and Emma both survived the birth, and I thought we were blessed. 3 years of watching Emma grow, hearing her laugh, teaching her to ride. Then the cholera came, and within a week, they were both gone." Cole's voice broke. "I couldn't save them, Sarah. I couldn't do anything but watch them die. Look at me." Sarah waited until Cole met her eyes. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But we're not Amanda and Emma. This is a different time, a different story. And whatever happens, we face it together. That's what we promised. Together." Cole repeated, the word like an anchor. "Together," Sarah confirmed. "Now come to bed. Your son or daughter is kicking, and I think they want to tell their father good night." Cole's hand on her belly, feeling the baby move, brought the first genuine smile she'd seen from him in days. "Strong," he murmured, "just like their mother. October arrived with cooler temperatures and Sarah's increasing discomfort. Doc Patterson moved into the guest room for the final 2 weeks, wanting to be present when labor started. Cole tried to maintain his normal routine, but rarely strayed far from the house. Labor began on October 23rd, just after dawn. Sarah woke Cole with a hand on his shoulder and a calm declaration, "It's time." Cole went white. "Already? ABs come when they come." Sarah grimaced through a contraction. "Get the doctor, and Cole, breathe. I need you calm." The next 14 hours were the longest of Cole's life. He paced the hallway outside the bedroom, listening to Sarah's groans of pain, feeling utterly helpless. Tom and the hands tried to distract him with whiskey and cards, but Cole couldn't focus on anything except the sounds coming from behind that closed door. As sunset painted the sky crimson, Doc Patterson emerged, tired but smiling. "You have a daughter, Cole. Healthy, loud, and already has her mother's temper." Cole's knees nearly buckled. "Sarah? Tired but fine. She did beautifully. Go meet your daughter." Sarah lay propped on pillows, hair damp with sweat, cradling a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. She looked exhausted and radiant, and Cole thought he'd never seen anything more beautiful. "Come meet her," Sarah said softly. Cole approached on shaking legs. Sarah pulled back the blanket, revealing a tiny red face and a shock of dark hair. The baby's eyes were squeezed shut, her mouth working in what might become a cry. "She's perfect," Cole whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Sarah, she's absolutely perfect." "Hold her." Sarah transferred the bundle carefully, and Cole found himself cradling his daughter. This tiny miracle that proved life could offer second chances. The baby opened her eyes, storm gray, like his own, and seemed to study her father with ancient wisdom. Cole's heart, which he'd thought fully occupied by Sarah, expanded to make room for this new, overwhelming love. "What should we name her?" Sarah asked. Cole thought of his first daughter, gone but never forgotten, of his wife who died too young, of the family he'd lost and the one he'd found. "Hope," he said. "Her name is Hope." Sarah smiled through happy tears. "Maddox, it's perfect." That night, with Sarah sleeping and Hope in her cradle beside the bed, Cole stood at the window watching stars emerge. He thought about fear and faith, about loving so deeply it hurt, about the courage required to risk everything for the possibility of joy. Hope stirred, making small noises. Cole lifted her, marveling at how light she was, how fragile and strong all at once. "Welcome to the Broken Arrow," he whispered. "You're going to love it here." Behind him, Sarah murmured in her sleep, and Hope's tiny hand wrapped around Cole's finger with surprising strength. And Cole Maddox, who'd thought his capacity for hope had died with his first family, felt it bloom again in his chest, fierce and bright and absolutely unbreakable. Hope was 6 months old when the letter arrived. Cole read it at breakfast, his expression darkening with each line. Sarah, bouncing Hope on her knee, noticed immediately. "What is it?" "My brother." Cole set down the letter with careful control. "He's coming to visit. Arriving next month." Sarah had heard about Marcus Maddox, the eldest son who'd inherited the family fortune and stayed in Philadelphia to run their father's shipping empire, the brother who'd called Cole a fool for going west, who'd cut him off financially when Cole refused to come home after Amanda died. That's unexpected, Sarah said carefully. That's a disaster waiting to happen. Cole pushed back from the table. Marcus doesn't do anything without an agenda. If he's coming here, he wants something. Marcus Maddox arrived in June with an entourage that included a secretary, a valet, and enough luggage for a royal tour. He was older than Cole by 5 years, with the same dark hair going silver at the temples, but where Cole's face was weathered by sun and work, Marcus's was smooth and pale from a life lived indoors. "Little brother," Marcus said, embracing Cole with perfunctory affection. "Still playing cowboy, I see?" "Still playing robber baron?" Cole countered, and Sarah heard the old rivalry beneath the words. Marcus's gaze shifted to Sarah and Hope. And this must be the new family. Charming. Very rustic. Sarah had dealt with Elizabeth's We eat what we raise here, so I hope you're not too attached to Eastern delicacies. Marcus's eyebrows rose. She has spirit. I approve. The first few days were tense but civil. Marcus toured the ranch with exaggerated interest, making notes in a leather-bound journal. He asked detailed questions about livestock, acreage, water rights, and profit margins. Cole answered tersely, clearly suspicious. On the third evening, Marcus finally revealed his purpose. They were in Cole's study. Whiskey poured, while Sarah put Hope to bed nearby. "I have a proposition," Marcus began. "The railroad's expanding westward. They're buying up land for stations, and they're paying premium prices. I have connections with the board. I could broker a deal for the Broken Arrow that would set you up for life." Cole's expression went cold. "The ranch isn't for sale. Don't be hasty. We're talking about enough money to move back east. Give your daughter every advantage. Proper schools, society, culture. You could buy a mansion, Cole. Live like the Maddox you were born to be. Not some dirt farmer playing at frontier life." "Dirt farmer?" Cole's voice dropped dangerously low. "This frontier life is the most real thing I've ever done. The Broken Arrow isn't a game or a phase. It's my home. It's my family's legacy. It's a monument to your dead wife," Marcus interrupted, "and we both know it. You're clinging to this place because letting go would mean admitting Amanda made a mistake coming here. That you made a mistake bringing her." Cole surged to his feet, but Sarah's voice cut through the tension. "That's enough." She stood in the doorway, Hope asleep in her arms. "Marcus, you've been here 3 days, and you think you understand my husband? You think you have the right to psychoanalyze his choices? Mrs. Maddox, I apologize if I've offended." "You haven't offended me. You've revealed yourself." Sarah settled Hope in her cradle, then turned to face Marcus fully. "You came here with an offer you knew Cole would refuse, because that's not really why you're here. You want him to refuse so you can feel superior, so you can confirm your belief that leaving Philadelphia was a mistake. Well, let me tell you something about your brother." She moved to stand beside Cole, and he wrapped an arm around her waist. "Cole built this ranch with his own hands. He employs 15 men and their families. He's respected throughout the territory for his integrity and his fairness. He saved me when I had nothing, gave me not just shelter, but purpose and partnership. And he's the best father I've ever seen. Patient, loving, and present in ways I suspect your own father never was." Marcus's face had gone rigid. "So here's my counter-proposition," Sarah continued. "You take your railroad deal and your Eastern superiority back to Philadelphia, and you leave your brother alone to live the life he's chosen. Because Cole isn't the failure in this family, Marcus. You are. You're failing to see what really matters." Silence filled the study. Then Marcus stood, straightened his jacket, and nodded slowly. Well, she's definitely an upgrade from Elizabeth's assessment. Cole, it seems you've found someone worthy of you. I know, Cole said quietly. Marcus finished his whiskey in one swallow. I'll leave in the morning. But Cole, I meant what I said about the railroad. They're coming, with or without your cooperation. Be prepared. After Marcus left, Cole pulled Sarah close. Thank you for defending me. Though I could have handled him. I know. But he's your brother, which complicates things. I'm your wife, which simplifies them. Sarah smiled up at him. Besides, someone had to tell him the truth. Might as well be the dirt farmer's wife. Cole laughed. The first genuine laughter Sarah had heard since Marcus arrived. Dirt farmer. As if we don't have the most profitable ranch in the territory. Money's not the point, though, is it? Sarah touched his face. The point is that we're happy. That Hope will grow up knowing her father, not just his money. That we've built something real. Something worth fighting for, Cole agreed. He kissed her slowly, deeply. I love you, Sarah Maddox. Your strength, your fire, your absolute refusal to be intimidated by anyone. Good qualities in a dirt farmer's wife, Sarah teased. Essential qualities, Cole confirmed. Now come to bed before Hope wakes and demands her midnight feeding. They left Marcus to his journal and his judgments and went to sleep wrapped in each other's arms, secure in the life they'd chosen, together. The railroad came exactly as Marcus had warned. 6 months after his visit, surveyors appeared on the eastern edge of the Broken Arrow, measuring and marking land that didn't belong to them. Cole confronted them with a dozen armed men, and the surveyors retreated, but the message was clear. The railroad wanted their route, and they weren't taking no for an answer. They'll come back, Tom warned at the emergency meeting Cole called. Railroad has the government behind them. Eminent domain. They can take what they want. Over my dead body, Cole said flatly. Sarah, nursing Hope in the corner, felt ice settle in her stomach. She'd heard stories about railroad disputes. Ranchers who'd refused to sell found their cattle poisoned, their water diverted, their homes mysteriously catching fire. The railroad played a different game than men like Garrett. They had law and money and patience. That night, she found Cole in the barn, grooming horses with mechanical precision, his way of thinking through problems. We can't fight the railroad, Sarah said quietly. Watch me. Cole, listen. No, you listen. Cole rounded on her, and Sarah saw the desperation in his eyes. First, it was Garrett trying to take this place. Now it's the railroad. How many times do I have to defend my home? When does it end? I don't know, Sarah admitted. But killing yourself in a fight you can't win isn't the answer. Hope needs her father. I need my husband. And I need this ranch. Cole's voice broke. This is where Emma took her first steps. Where Amanda planted those roses that still bloom every spring. Where I buried them both on that hill overlooking the valley. How do I give that up? Sarah's heart ached for him. You don't, but maybe there's another way. An idea was forming. Risky, but possible. What if we don't fight the railroad? What if we negotiate? I'm not selling. Not selling. Negotiating. Sarah moved closer, Hope drowsy against her shoulder. Marcus said they need land for stations. What if we sell them a portion, not the heart of the ranch, but maybe the eastern section, where the creek runs dry half the year anyway? We set the price, we set the terms, and we use that money to buy more land on the western border, where the Morrison Ranch abuts ours. John's been wanting to retire and move to Denver to be near his daughter. We expand where it matters, and we give the railroad what they need to leave us alone. Cole stared at her. That's actually brilliant. I have my moments. Sarah smiled. The railroad gets their route. You keep the core of the Broken Arrow intact, and we position ourselves for the future. Because Marcus was right about one thing: the railroad's coming whether we like it or not. We can be destroyed by it, or we can adapt. When did you get so smart about business? Cole pulled her close, careful of hope between them. When I married a stubborn rancher who needed someone to think strategically while he thinks emotionally. Sarah kissed him. I love that you feel deeply, Cole, but sometimes we need to think with our heads, not our hearts. The negotiations took 3 months. The railroad initially offered 50 cents an acre for land that was worth $5. Cole, with Sarah's coaching, held firm. They eventually settled on $3 an acre for a corridor 20 acres wide through the eastern section. Land that was minimally productive but essential for the railroad's route. The money allowed them to buy the Morrison Ranch at a fair price, effectively doubling the Broken Arrow's size where it mattered. The railroad got their route. Cole kept his home and his family's graves, and the Broken Arrow emerged stronger. The day the papers were signed, Cole found Sarah in what was now called Hope's Meadow, the section of land where their daughter loved to play among the wildflowers. Sarah was watching Hope toddle after butterflies, the baby's laughter like music. We did it, Cole said, sinking down beside his wife. The Broken Arrow survives another threat. We're getting good at that. Sarah leaned against his shoulder. Surviving together. Together, Cole echoed. He watched Hope fall in the grass and immediately get up again, determined and fearless. She's going to be a force of nature, isn't she? With you as her father and me as her mother, absolutely. Sarah smiled. Heaven help anyone who underestimates her. Cole laughed and pulled both his girls close, his wife and his daughter, the family he'd never thought he'd have again. In the distance, workers were already laying railroad tracks, and in 6 months, a train would run through what used to be empty prairie. But the heart of the Broken Arrow remained untouched. The house, the barn, the meadow, the hill where Amanda and Emma rested. And Cole had learned that change wasn't always loss, that sometimes adaptation was the truest form of strength. What do you think? He asked Sarah. Will Hope grow up to be a rancher? Maybe. Or maybe she'll be a doctor, or a lawyer, or an engineer. Sarah kissed Hope's dark curls. But whatever she becomes, she'll know where she came from. She'll know about the grandmother who loved this land, about her father who fought to keep it, and about how her parents built something that lasted. Something worth passing on, Cole agreed. Something earned, Sarah corrected. Not with gold or guns, but with courage and compromise and love. As the sun set over the Broken Arrow, Cole held his family and thought about legacy. Not the kind measured in acres or cattle or railroad deals, but the kind measured in moments like this. Peace hard won, love freely given, hope for tomorrow. The ranch would endure, the family would grow, and whatever challenges came next, they would face them the only way they knew how, together. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where your